A soft drink that's good for you? Sounds too good to be true. Well, this one really is. Because it contains extracts from a unique fruit that's packed full of nutrients, the Kakadu plum. The Kakadu plum is an Australian native fruit found right across the top of Australia, in Kakadu, the Kimberley and northern Queensland. Conditions in these areas are harsh, and the Kakadu plum tree needs to be tough to survive. As a food scientist, I'm fascinated by the nutritional properties of this little guy. There's 60 times the vitamin C in a Kakadu plum as there is in an orange. They might be good for you, but Kakadu plums don't taste that great. So scientists here at the University of Western Australia worked out how to extract their nutrients and add them to a soft drink. Let's take a look at how we identify and extract these nutrients. Once we've collected our plums, we get them into the lab and freeze dry them as quickly as possible. This stops the fruit from degrading and losing all their beneficial nutrients. We put the plums in the freezer, where all the water in the fruit will turn to ice. Next, we dry the plums. We do this by reducing pressure, which turns ice into water vapour. We usually leave them overnight. When a solid is turned into a gas like this, it's called sublimation. You might think drying the plums with heat would be a better idea, but heat actually destroys the nutrients, so we want to avoid that. I'm using a mortar and pestle to crush the dried plums into a powder. You can also do this with a coffee grinder. Now we have a powder, I'll extract the nutrients using a solvent. The solvent I'm using is a mixture of methanol and water. Basically, this dissolves the vitamin C and other useful chemicals. The next stage of extraction is stirring using an electric stirrer. This dissolves even more of the Kakadu plum powder. Once again, we avoid using heat because we don't want to destroy the extracted nutrients. Next, we filter the mixture. We let the solid settle to the bottom of the flask, then decant the liquid into the filter. Most of the solid stays in the flask, so we repeat the dissolving process with more solvent. We can do this up to 3 times. This helps us to collect all of the nutrients. The clear solution we're left with is called a filtrate. The solid that hasn't dissolved is thrown away. The solvent we added has done its job, so now we want to evaporate some of it away. To do this, we put the filtrate under a nitrogen blower. This concentrates the nutrients into a small volume of solution. Now the solution is ready for testing. To separate the Kakadu plum nutrients, we use high pressure liquid chromatography. It's a bit like separating food colouring with paper chromatography, just more high tech. High pressure liquid chromatography separates the plum mixture into its different chemicals and allows us to identify each component. It also measures how much of each chemical there is. Each chemical that's in our plum sample is recorded as a peak on the graph. We identify each chemical by its position on the graph. and how much of each chemical there is by the size of the peak. This analysis shows us that Kakadu plums are full of nutrients, and that's why this unique fruit has been added to a drink. Here at the University of Western Australia, we're interested in the nutritional properties of other native Australian fruits and herbs: the Davidson plum, bush tomato, and lemon myrtle. I'm currently investigating what nutrients they contain and whether there's any link between where these plants are grown and their nutritional value. It could be that the tougher the conditions, the more likely that the plants are packed with nutrients. And this is important if we want to make the best use of these unique Australian foods.